So you found the skeleton. How would you tell it to die? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on this.
Hey everybody, we are here for Jackson with Jackson, number 6, I think. Sorry about the late start. Someone didn't show up until it was 2 minutes
Dapper.
to showtime, which, no, it was not me, as you can see from the chat
Definitely
log.
Dapper.
Mm-mm.
Have been Charles Jackson for all we know.
Charles Jackson is here when I'm here, because I'm the one who controls his speech.
Want my lawyer.
Well, I will send an email to your lawyer once I get that email. So, send me the address, and I will send it out there. But that's okay. I only just barely started reaching out to other people to take Jackson's place right before he got here.
Can't believe you just gave up on me so quickly.
It's been about a half an hour, Jackson.
I was eating.
That's not really a good reason to have your phone off.
My phone wasn't off. It was in my pocket.
Then how come you didn't answer when I called 4 times?
My phone's always on silent.
Well, then it might as well be off. Anyway, we are
a salty dinosaur.
We are here to talk about Jackson with Jackson, or Charles Jackson, Bad Jackson, Bacteria Not Evolving Resistance to Antibiotics. He's basically been spending he spent the last episode, which was last week, basically saying that evolutionists are projecting, or, well, no, that he was spent it projecting, saying that evolutionists, some of them know it's not true, and they just try to teach you evolution for evil reasons because they're satanic jerks or something. And also talking about how some of them are deceived by Satan, which then makes me wonder, so, like, is Satan sitting on, like, PhD boards? Is he, like, on the editorial staff for various biology journals? Like, how does Satan accomplish this?
He's winning hearts and minds through intense academic debate.
Maybe. I mean, maybe. Although I haven't seen too many papers that list him as an author. Have you?
Et al., obviously.
Oh, right, that's true. Et al. Is just Satan. Oh, man.
That's his calling card, is et al.
For those of... Oh, first of all, Mackenzie Brown, welcome to the tetrapod level of the channel memberships. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. If you have trouble... Actually, you're going to have trouble getting access to the Discord server, so do let me know. You can just put... I have a whole bunch of community posts that are just for patrons. Like, try to tag me on one of those, and I'll get you a link. It'll probably be a one-time use, 7-day expiration link for the paid server, because you do now have access to that if you want it. Of course, if you don't, then just don't send me anything, and that'll be okay too. You can also email me or reach me on Twitter at dinosaur_dapper. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, which all those links in the description or in my about page, you know. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. Every single channel member helps us get closer to more emojis. And I think my next emoji is going to be a dapper dinosaur in a diaper, as suggested by a certain, largely irrelevant, but still every once in a while fun to point and laugh at YouTube creationist. So, yeah. Anyway, in case you guys aren't familiar with the et al. Joke, our wonderful creationist moron, Raw Matthew, who took seriously the idea that perhaps eating was optional in terms of survival. That was according to him, he spent some time exploring breatharianism. So, you know, that's the kind of intellectual prowess we're working with. He cited...
What did he say? Honey for 8 months or something like that?
Yeah, something like raw honey for 8 months or something. It was absolutely insane. Like, you don't have to have a degree in biology to know that these are bad ideas, but whatever. He wrote a paper which he submitted to a peer-reviewed journal, and it was insta-kicked out because he couldn't even follow the formatting guidelines. Shocker, I know. But in it, he cited a number of works that didn't exist, like Jensen et al. 2007, which was the publication date for Replacing Darwin, which was by Jensen alone, which means you should have just cited Jensen 2007. But apparently our friend Uncooked Matthew does not know what et al. Means. So he just put it at the end of all of his citations, even for works that only had a single author, that's just fun.
Appreciate that he at least tried.
You
tried, and you still failed.
He also center aligned the entire text, though, Jackson. Like, come on.
He did do that. Yeah, that's unacceptable.
Yeah. So I know this is a little discouraging, but whatever. For those of you who don't know, if you want to submit a paper to a journal, the first thing that they're going to check is to see if you followed the formatting guidelines. And if you didn't, it doesn't matter how great your work is; it's gone. And the only note you're likely to get is follow the formatting guidelines. So, yep. Anyway, that's off topic because this isn't Matt with Maddie. That is next month. We should be having a Matt with Maddie. Didn't have one this week because Maddie's doing finals and she's got all sorts of other stuff going on, so that's okay.
Took a limnology test earlier this week.
How did that
It was
go?
rough, but I passed. So.
Nice. Well, congratulations. All right, so let's go.
Limnology is not my main thing.
It's not. It's becoming more and more something that I know about, but like, actually, as I go through this channel, I just learned a whole bunch about like random bits of science because creationism likes to, just crap all over pretty much all of science. So if you go about trying to debunk it, you have to learn a whole lot of science, which has actually been nice. I'm much smarter about many things than I used to be. Anyway, let's go over the drinking rules because we got drinking rules again. Feel free not to play or to play with non-alcoholic beverages. We definitely discourage you from doing anything dangerous, and also this channel, as well as Jackson, accepts no responsibility or liability for any death, dismemberment, grievous bodily injury, mutilation, destruction of property, war crimes, or anything else that are the result of you participating in the drinking game and then getting drunk and doing stupid things. That's on you. So if you want to participate with alcohol, it's optional. Very optional, but if you do so at your own risk because this is a dangerous game. I play it every week, and every Wednesday is a rough morning, let me tell you.
Our pods have very, very strong constitutions, apparently.
My goodness. Oh, it's rough. I'm drinking some gin and tonic. I was gonna go get an orange and use the orange juice because I have very, very sour and very unsweet oranges on the tree, but I didn't have time. So there you go. It's just got lime juice in it. So the rules are: we drink whenever the creationist, in this case, Dr. Charles Jackson, Bad Jackson, says something that's so stupid we kind of have to preserve our brains. Because basically, you just kill off a few of those neurons that heard that, and it stops from spreading the infection of the stupidity that Dr. Charles Jackson just spewed. We also take a drink for jokes that didn't land, for the creationist involved actually getting a point of fact correct without it being a direct quote. We take a drink for stories that didn't happen, or sometimes call those shower thoughts. It's a little interchangeable, right? When you pretend that your shower thought argument actually happened, yeah, that's a drinking trigger. Because these creationists do that a lot. They're like, this one time I was debating an atheist, and it's like, is that a real story, or did you just come up with that in the shower and then forget that it didn't happen? We drink whenever they bring up, let's see, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, their activities in like the 20s, 30s, 40s, any leaders thereof, or any prominent members of that particular political party. They do that a lot. There are a couple of drink triggers that are not directly tied to the video. And this is to just kind of spice it up and add a little bit of randomness or some audience participation. So the bit of randomness is that occasionally my phone will give off a sound effect of either Mothra or Godzilla. Those are both drink triggers, so feel free. Also, if you are a channel member, which we just had a new one, so you have access to this, and you super chat anything, if it includes any of the kaiju emojis that we have for channel members, which include Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, then we will take a drink for that, no matter the value and no matter what else it says. So really, if you just want to do a minimum super chat and put a Godzilla in there, we'll drink for it. Also, anyone can super chat anything to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks because they continuously copyright claim basically anything that anyone uses of theirs, no matter how fair use it is. And then it usually takes somewhere around 2 to 3 weeks to get that copyright claim cleared, which means if I make a new video about AIG, I have to wait almost a month before I can actually put it up on my channel and actually get money from it, which is pretty annoying. They've also in the past gone by and just like mass flagged a whole bunch of my stuff, and so for a while there I had like 12 videos or something. I don't remember. It was ridiculous that I just couldn't monetize. So yeah, if you super chat anything to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks or a bag of dicks or anything like that, we'll take a drink. But be careful. YouTube likes to censor that kind of thing because it basically it thinks that none of you are adult enough to hear or see the word dick, which is kind of weird because this is definitely not made for kids. Although we do try to keep it reasonably clean. But Jackson, got anything to add before we actually just hit play and listen to whatever Bad Jackson has to say about Jeffrey Schwartz?
No, let's rock.
All right, well, may the Jeffrey Schwartz be with you. Here we go.
Journal 2007, an article called "Do Molecular Clocks Run at All?" He said about those mutational changes, that struck me that this model of constant change was never challenged. If our molecules were constantly changing, he means DNA molecules, it would threaten proper survival.
Okay,
Germs evolve?
so
Nope.
I think we covered that last time, but just in case if anybody wants a refresher, you weren't there for that. What I think is happening in that article is Schwartz is probably doing a history of the study of molecular clock dating methods, which are look at the rates of mutation for different sequences of DNA and figure out how long it would have taken to go back to a common ancestor, or how long it would take for this segment to accrue a certain number of mutations, all that sort of stuff. What he's probably discussing in that section is what's called a constant speedism, basically that mutations accrue at uniform rates. And this was sort of this was an idea, and I think Darwin held to a sort of constant speedism in terms of natural selection, but as time has gone on, it turns out there are different rates of evolution. Sometimes evolution is fast, sometimes it's slow, depending on the environment. And some genes mutate very rapidly, some don't mutate rapidly, and it sort of is related, or it's largely related to how important that particular gene is to an organism's survival. So it's very important. The odds that it will mutate are probably fairly low, but if it's not as important, it's probably going to mutate more often. And there are other factors involved with that, of course, such as whether it's like heterochromatin or euchromatin or sort of stuff. But regardless, I think that's what he's probably talking about, and Charles Jackson is just sort of throwing it out there, like
some kind of
evolution or something.
Like he had found this quotation in the ground and he mined it out of the ground and presented it to us.
That is, yeah, probably the case.
Interesting. Now, I can't imagine a creationist ever doing that. So I'm going to doubt.
I know.
Right. That's extremely. Yeah, you did robot a little bit there, Jackson. So, yeah. You know what? Jackson lives in what we technically call the middle of nowhere, not even at the edge of nowhere, the straight middle of it. So his internet struggles to get to kilobytes per second most of the time. So we gotta forgive him because.
Did you guys hear most of what I said, or
they did.
Was it all lost? Or
no, very little of it was lost ultimately.
Okay, all right, good, glad to hear it. Okay.
At least that was my impression. Maybe other people disagree. Oh, by the way, and I didn't say this at the beginning, and I should have, I am still doing the Patreon drive. Currently, we are $89 away from the goal. That's $89 per month away from the goal. If you do want to join the Patreon, please do consider it. It really, really would help the channel out. And the goal is to get to $400 a month. Like I said, we are $89 away from that. There are tiers starting as low as $1 a month, going all the way up to $100 a month if you want to just finish that drive right away. And also there is a 10% discount for people who decide to go subscribe annually. You get access to the special Patreon Discord server where we discuss things like all sorts of things. We discuss gaming, we discuss speculative evolution, we discuss the channel, we discuss other creationists. Sometimes we hang out in voice chat. Sometimes Ben Hoven comes by and then decides that we're going to watch some more Power Rangers, and we watch that in the voice chat. So, it's a fun time, and please do consider it if you have the money. If you don't, please don't consider it, and just like this video and watch the channel. That really helps. So, sorry I didn't make that announcement before, but I figured I would just ham-fistedly insert it here with absolutely no segue. And then we're going to hit more Bad Jackson, because I am a professional at this. I'm very professional. Best segues. Here we go.
One guy's already immune. This is just variation horizontally, no new information, natural selection from already existing genes, which you saw in several textbooks and articles and everything.
Okay, so we're going to take a drink for two reasons. Two reasons. And we're going to go over the reasons after I take a drink. That's crisp and refreshing. I like it. Gin and tonic, classic. Anyway, so it is true that selection selects from the existing alleles. That's just how it works, right? How else could it work? Selection cannot select for things that don't exist. Okay, but that is evolution. So first we drank for it being technically true that yes, natural selection only selects things that already exist. But evolution is a change in allele frequencies in a population over time. Which means that if you have a change in allele frequency such that some particular allele that provides resistance to, say, like penicillin becomes more prominent, that is evolution. And then the next thing is, we've already discussed this, but there's this concept called mutation saturation, right? So populations can be big enough that the chances are very high that every single generation, they've sampled every possible point mutation that the genome can have. In the case of bacterial populations, often many times over. Which means, if any mutation could provide resistance to any antibacterial agent, whether it be antibiotics or a bacteriophage, or just good old soap and water, then that mutation will occur and will be present in any sufficiently sized bacterial population. Now, most pathogenic bacteria have such populations on at least like the worldwide stage, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the mutation isn't a problem because we know that those mutations can occur because we can see what alleles and how that differs from the consensus genome for that, or well, the consensus sequence for that gene. And so we can reconstruct a set of mutations or even just a mutation that provides that. And we know that that has happened. That mutation has already happened many times. So there really is no reason to say that this is an evolution and that there's some mysterious source for the new variations. I have a couple of super chats to read, and then we're going to go and see what Jackson has to add. For $5, Kerry Bronson says, creation quotes are like potatoes, dug from the ground, disease-inducing in large quantities, and best with numerous grains of salt. I don't think I could have possibly put it better than that. That's pretty great. Josiah Hansen for $5 says, mean, in quotations, bago dicks, D-I-X. All right, I'm going to take a drink for that. A large bag or satchel that contains strictly male reproductive organ, also AIG. Nice. So there we go. Oh, and the mean was from the message that YouTube wouldn't send, so we missed a little bit of context there. But that's okay, Josiah Hansen. I liked it. I drank for it. I appreciate it. Jackson, what do you have to add to this?
It's also the whole mutation thing, because you have these populations which are spread all over the planet and have a variety of mutations. And what point do you stop considering these the same species?
Well, yeah, that is actually a tricky thing. Like, for instance, in the Lenski long-term experiment with E. coli, one of the diagnostic characteristics for E. coli is the inability to metabolize citrate under aerobic conditions. But now there is a lineage in the long-term Lenski experiment that can do that, which means that technically, per the normal definition of E. coli, these are not E. coli. They have speciated at this point. Jens van Broekhoven for €10 says, at Dapper Dinosaur, doing my best with a heart emoji. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And if that was meant to be some kind of apology, you have nothing to apologize for, my friend. We love Jens here. He's one of my longest standing fans. So thank you very much, Jens van Broekhoven. And Jackson, was that that cover it, or should we move on?
I agree with you.
Okay. Well, thank you for agreeing with me, my friend. Here we go.
I do.
It's the way it is. Take a look at this. Well, the other thing I said that can happen is plasmid transfer. 2011 Science Daily. Discovery of jumping gene clusters tangles the tree of life. All new science tangles the tree of life for them, for the evolutionary theory. But let's look at this.
Okay. That was dumb. I'm gonna take a drink.
That was dumb. There's a book, if anybody's interested, titled "A Tangled Tree," which is about how our conceptions of phylogenetics has changed as a result of things like horizontal gene transfer. But yet, nobody's given up evolution as a result. Weird. How peculiar.
Eric Chamian, I see what you're going for. You reversed the first two vowels in your first word. So actually, reversed a whole lot of it. It's inshep, but I get it. Epnish it tin laut tin push. Yes, so that is so it's a little off. It should probably be at it chai, because that's the possessor. Inshep, because that is the possessee. Tin laut, hoch tin push, which would then mean that AIG are the biggest, or have the biggest dicks, or are the biggest dick. I want to say are the biggest. It gets a little bit more complicated because one of the things that I've always complained about Klingon is that it makes superlatives and comparatives annoyingly difficult to express. There it is. Yeah, the tin laut, or the XY laut, XY push construction, it really doesn't work for this sentence. You probably have to go with something like AIG chach inshep Putin or like Mach Hochlat inshep Put, something like that. Like AIG are bigger than all the other are big dicks. All the other dicks are small. It's complicated. Klingon is annoying when it comes to that, but we're gonna take a drink anyway. That was a noble attempt. I really appreciate it. It's always great when we get Klingon in there, because where else you're gonna get creation busting and then random bits of Klingon for no reason?
This is a fair question.
The answer is nowhere. Nowhere. So let's see. Yeah, so tangling the tree of life. Oh, by the way, take a drink for that, because that wasn't AIG or a bunch of dicks. Super chat. There we go. So the tangling of the tree of life. Now, it is the case that horizontal gene transfer did make it so that at the base of the tree of life, so between things like the domains, like eukarya, archaea, and bacteria, right? It's hard to come up with an actual, just neatly branching tree because of significant amounts of horizontal gene transfer. Now, to some extent, horizontal gene transfer still happens, right? There are caterpillars that have genes that have actually been transferred to them from parasitoid wasp larvae that they managed to survive. And then that has gone on to provide them with resistance to being parasitized by these wasp larvae. So it's like, it still happens, but for the most part, you don't say that those caterpillars are descended from the, ichneumanoid wasps because they have a gene from that genome that got horizontally transferred. Same thing with like neofunctionalization of retroviral genetic information inside like mammals. So for instance, placental mammals, their ability to form placentas and to suppress the female immune system during pregnancy is to some extent dependent on an ancient virus that infected the common ancestor, or something back farther than that, of all placental mammals. And then that was turned into an actual functional region of the genome. But we wouldn't say that, placental mammals are descended from that virus. Tyler Westford 199 says, AIG sont grand guivon? I can't talk. Guivon? There we go. I'm not even sure if that's French. I can't. Yeah, it should. Yeah. Here we go. Look, guys, I'm still in Klingon mode, and I'm already getting a little bit of gin in me, so sorry. What can I say? I do really appreciate it, though. Take a drink if you're drinking along with Tyler West, because, oh, Jens Van Broken was drinking champagne. That's very fancy. I am drinking gin. And relatively cheap gin at that. So, whatever. Yeah, but once you get past the very base, there's really not so much horizontal gene transfer that it's tangling things up. Instead, what actually tends to happen in terms of changing the quote-unquote tree of life is that fairly distal branches get swapped around every once in a while, and that's becoming even less common now that we're sequencing more and more genomes and we're getting things more and more right. Oh, it's Spanish. There we go. Con gran huevones? Huevones? He's the bilabial, isn't it? Huevones. Man, my Spanish is not that great. Everyone thinks it's good, including YouTube, who continually recommend videos to me in Spanish. Really not that great. Where was I? Jackson, fix me. Where was I?
Jackson with Jackson.
Oh, right. Distal ends of the tree of life. So, for instance, when phylogenetics, actually with genetics really became a big thing, there were a bunch of surprises, like edentata, which used to be a thing for mammals, which included like the aardvark, the anteater, and the pangolin. Mostly because they were all toothless, anteaters who had broadly similar body shapes. It was thought that they were closely related, but it turns out, nope, that's convergent, and molecular data showed that anteaters are closer to sloths and armadillos than they are to anything else, that the aardvark is closer to elephants and its relatives than they are to anything else, and that the pangolin is actually closer to carnivorans, like cats and dogs and bears, than anything else. And so that was a little bit of a reshuffle, but it didn't tangle anything. There were no branches that crossed over each other or anything. And now, for the most part, that doesn't happen all that often. Usually it's like, oh, hey, we referred this particular species to this genus, but really it should have been this other closely related genus. So, it's really not something that's overturning the evolutionary paradigm all the time. That's just what the clickbait headlines want you to think. Because, that sells newspapers or gets clicks on websites. I don't think... Do newspapers still exist, Jackson?
Yes.
They do?
You can go to grocery stores and buy them.
Why?
Because old people, I don't know.
Huh. Weird.
Are you asking all these questions, Dapper?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you go to...
Diaper Dino?
Maybe you go to grocery stores more than I do. I did go today, though.
Hey, when I worked at
Jackson?
Berkshire's...
Oh, there you go. Oh, Jackson, you're roboting.
We sold papers, and it would be...
Jackson, you're roboting. Hello, Jackson? Jackson's gone. Tesla Ranger says, ever tried blood wine, rum, tequila, cranberry juice, Tabasco sauce, and grenadine? No, I don't think I want to. That does not actually sound very good. Jackson, if you can hear me, you might want to disconnect and reconnect to the call. Because you are inaudible, my friend. So, I don't know. We're going to push ahead without Jackson, potentially, because I don't know what's going on his end. But hopefully, like a hurricane or something didn't get him. But there you go.
Horizontal gene transfer, that's that plasmid transfer I was talking about between bacteria, was first discovered in bacteria, and it has been recognized as largely responsible for the problem of drug resistance. Okay, it's largely the reason that bacteria are immune.
Okay, so he's leaving out some important bits here. So first I'm going to type at Jackson. Tell him to maybe disconnect and reconnect. So there we go. I typed to Jackson. Okay, so the thing is that horizontal gene transfer explains why it is that in an environment where there is some significant amount of pressure for increased antibiotic resistance, that it tends to spread through the population. So what will happen is you'll start to get horizontal gene transfer is going to be a fairly stochastic thing between a population of bacteria, right? So they're going to be all trading various alleles here and there, whatnot. And it's going to be somewhat random which allele you're likely to get, or which new gene even you're going to get from a new a new bacterial buddy of yours. But in a situation where there's significant selection pressure, where a particular genome or genotype starts to become more predominant, what's going to happen is that you're likely to have that spread more because it's already a higher proportion of the population. That's just statistics. And so, as that goes on, then you have the bacteria who are already resistant because, as we talked about, they're mutation saturated, right? So they have to have this. Yeah, Jackson just seems to be gone from the internets. So we're gonna turn off his feed here. Sorry, Jackson. I hope you come back. Where did his? There we go. So now we just get a black screen. Rest in peace, Jackson. It was great having you here for the first half-ish hour. Anyway, but then yeah, through just genetic drift, basically, you're going to increase the proportion since you already have the allele, because again, mutation-saturated populations are guaranteed to have the types of alleles that are going to make this work. So yeah, we're going to continue on. I don't think I took a drink for that, but it's worth it, so.
That does not require new DNA. Someone's got it, and they shared it with somebody else. That's all it is. No new DNA, no new traits, no new genes.
Okay, so he's just leaving out the fact that, yeah, we know that the genetics do and can arise. So, yeah, it's not helpful.
Look what it says. It's largely responsible for the problem of drug resistance. If one bacterium evolves, now for them, they're saying it evolves. I'm saying it already had it. They're saying if one bacterium does evolve a method for surviving a drug, this ability can spread rapidly to other unrelated microorganisms via horizontal gene transfer, substantially reducing the drug's effectiveness. That could be true too if they didn't evolve it, but somebody in the crowd had it.
And again, it just goes back to the fact that he's oh, drink for Mothra.
I mean, that's just how that happens.
Oh, hey, Jackson, you're back.
Was I ever truly gone? That's the real question.
Yes, you were.
Allegedly.
I mean, I saw you leave, and you dropped from the call, and your little green circle on Discord went to a gray circle with a hole in the middle.
Doesn't sound right.
Well, everyone saw it, and we were all very embarrassed for you.
You were embarrassed for me.
Mm-hmm. It's true. Anyway.
How sweet.
We were just talking about the fact that Dr. Charles Jackson is continuing to ignore the problem of the fact that he's talking about mutation-saturated in populations, so it's guaranteed that at some point the mutations required for resistance are going to happen. It's a mathematical certainty, basically. Now, I'm just being a little exaggerating. Yeah, I'm exaggerating a little bit when I say a certainty. Obviously, there's always a non-zero chance that a particular mutation just won't occur, but it gets lower and lower the higher and higher the population gets. So, and it gets to the point where the chances of any given mutation not occurring somewhere in the population is so minuscule that it doesn't really make sense to talk about it anymore. So here we go.
And of course, this evolve is the story part of it. That they have everything. A lot of this stuff they're saying is rational, logical, and scientific, and has been observed and tested. But
that's true. Take a drink. Thank you very much, Dr. Charles Jackson.
Good job.
We're going to give you congrats and kudos right before you go and stick your foot firmly all the way into your mouth and slightly down your throat.
Not that evolved part.
Oh, man, but that is evolution. So now take a drink for him being a complete moron. And also, like Jens van Broekhoven says, please do hit like. I am seeing about 14 people here who have not done so, and it really does help the channel.
Where the fairy tale comes in, that's where walking out on the edge of the limb on a leap of faith has to occur, because there isn't any science backing the evolved idea in this whole thing. But they walk right up to the edge of the cliff and they tell you, you know what, there's no solid ground, but keep walking.
Projection.
That's where we're...
Do we...
Projection.
You know, I'm just going to say, just because this episode is Charles Jackson is a projector, and the thumbnail is of a film projector projecting into, well, I guess, Charles Jackson, which is kind of a reversal of the title. Whatever, man. There's only so much I can do with a thumbnail. We're going to take a drink. Oh. And you know what? We're getting a Godzilla theme song. I don't know if you guys can hear that very well. Probably not. Oh, Nielsen is calling me. They want to know about my TV viewing habits. Oh, well, sorry, Nielsen. Oh, but there's Mothra, so we'll drink for that. Sorry, guys. I literally can't have my phone making these sounds unless it can also take calls, so, like, I don't know. I guess I could take the SIM card out. Oh, yeah, I guess I could do that. Alright, I just suck, guys, so that's how it is. Sorry. Also, I'm not participating in viewer surveys. I probably should. They did send me a 5-note. In the mail, which is illegal, by the way. I'm allowed to mail cash, but they do it anyway. I don't know how they get away with that, because it's like a well-known practice that they do. Whatever.
Trying to get to, yes. Well, see, yeah, what he said was, if one bacterium has a method for surviving a drug, then the ability can spread. Well, that would be actually what can be shown to be true scientifically. But what they're doing is something that they're proposing is true, and they proposed it over and over and over again so many times.
Which part
nobody
is
realized.
the proposition? Which part is the not observed part, Dr. Charles Jackson? Because I'm confused.
Well, I think
I'm pretty sure all of this has been observed.
I think he's about to try to tell us that it's the origin of these alleles or genes, because in some cases they may be new genes. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. Actually, I'm very confident at some point they are new genes, because, you know, with horizontal gene transfer, even if you have that particular homolog for that gene knocked out in a bacterium that's about to receive a gene that confers some kind of resistance, then yeah, it would be getting a new gene. So new alleles and new genes are both going to be involved.
It's a proposal. It's been mouthed back and forth so much, like it's a fact. The emperor does have clothes. The emperor does have clothes. Like, I do believe in spooks. I do believe in spooks. You know, I mean, you just say it enough times, and I guess it becomes true. You know, Hitler said that.
Oh, drink.
National Socialist German Workers' Party. Take a drink,
There it
guys.
is.
My goodness. I was wondering when we were going to get to that, because we always do. For some reason, every creationist seems to just pull out that good old National Socialist card right out of their pocket and says, boom, look what that guy said. And it's always like, okay.
The way things are, and he fooled a whole country. Yeah. Yeah. What he was saying is, if you said has instead of evolved, the peer review would refuse your article for their publication.
Not how peer review works.
Okay.
It's simply not how peer review works.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Because that's not how language works.
Nope. Also, that's a big ol' citation needed on that one. Which, my citation needed isn't working. Come on.
Did he
Stop it.
offer to
Here we go.
he sent in a paper for peer review, and they said, "Oh, sorry, you wrote the word have here. We only accept the word evolved,
Yeah,
not have." Sorry.
Unless that's actually happened, unless he's actually gotten that rejection letter that says, "Oh, you didn't use the word evolved everywhere you could have," then yeah.
In fact, if you look up all the peer-reviewed literature, the word have or has does not appear even once.
It's always evolved.
It's replaced with evolve or evolved. Yep.
That's why
Every single time.
That's why you get papers that say things like, you know, oh, the Coconino sandstone evolved crossbedding consistent with aeolian arid environment deposition. That's just a fact, right?
There's no other way to have it.
You could say things like, oh, hey, this stellar mass black hole evolved a mass of 1.2 solar masses. Yep. Okay, I'm going to take a drink because that is so insane. And the thing is, you realize that that's not an idea that Bad Jackson had, right? Some audience member said it, and he was like, yeah, that fits with my bias. Let's just go with it. That's how that happened. You just saw him form a new lie in front of you in real time at the drop of a hat. which is frankly kind of amazing. Like, it's an impressive level of intellectual dishonesty that will let you just make up a new lie on the spot so that you can agree with an audience member who's saying something ridiculous, but that confirms your bias. So, in a very perverse way, I'm impressed.
I had one evolutionist from the Atheist Club of Oklahoma City get all over my case about how if I'm such a great scientist, why don't I have why don't I publish all of my wonderful science in peer-reviewed journals?
First, I mean, you know, I might actually believe this story.
Might
actually believe that.
I'm not going to drink for the story, at least so far. But what I am going to point out is Charles Jackson isn't a scientist of any kind. First of all, his PhD is in education, which is a perfectly fine thing to get a PhD in, but he's not doing science. He certainly doesn't have the qualifications to do science, and he's not doing research. He is at best attempting to be a science communicator. So he wants to be like the creationist Bill Nye, right? Bill Nye is not a scientist. He was an engineer. Hey, he's a science communicator. He's not doing his own research, really. He's just trying to get other people to understand parts about science that he thinks are important and that he thinks he can adequately explain the level that lay audiences will understand them better than they did before they listened to him. You can debate how successful he is. I think it's slightly uneven. Doesn't matter. That is the most that Charles Jackson here is doing, is he is communicating his understanding of scientific principles. He isn't doing science. So the real answer that he should be giving is, well, I'm not a scientist. I'm a science communicator. But my friends like Andrew Snelling and Michael Ord and Nathaniel Jeanson, they're publishing. At which point they come back and say, okay, but they can't publish anything consistent with creationism in conventional journals because they can't pass peer review because they get it wrong. Which is why they, publish in sham journals like the Answers, the Answers Research Journal, or Proceedings of the Quarterly
Creation
Conference or something like that.
Yeah.
These are sham journals that don't
complexity.
Right. Now, the reason I say they're sham journals is because they, first, in their submission guidelines, they have conclusions that are verboten. You're not allowed to submit a pro-Old Earth or a pro-evolution paper to these journals, no matter how good the work is, because they have preconceived conclusions. And second, they don't actually have staff that are capable of peer reviewing in most cases. Like, for instance, who's the only editor on the Answers Research Journal? Andrew Snelling. That's it. I mean, maybe he sends papers to other people, but he doesn't have to. He's literally the only person there who's actually responsible for what gets published. Oh, Moth was here. So that's when I say things like, oh, this is a sham journal, that's why I'm saying these things. Because it's demonstrably a sham. And then also, they publish things that are just wrong. So, for instance, Andrew Snelling, when he publishes in his own journal, because there's no conflict of interest there, right? He'll do things like, he'll put people in front of structures, like geological structures, that he just says don't exist. And his proof is the picture that he shows. See? No crack here in this folded strata. Okay, why is that guy there? Oh, because if you move him, you see the crack that he says isn't there. That's why. I mean, there's just blatant lies in this, and not only does he get to keep publishing, he's the chief editor, well, the chief and only editor, because I don't know why you need to be chief editor if you're the only one, but whatever. Like, this is the kind of thing, this is the kind of thing that would get people kicked out of actual real academic circles. Like, publishing lies in the journal that you edit is completely unacceptable. So, let's see what Charles Jackson has, because I've just gone off a lot on, like, the state of Young Earth peer review, if you can even call it that. Let's see what he has to say.
And he was getting mad at me at the time. It was during question and answer period after a debate with somebody else. And I said, sir, the reason why...
Wait, can we pause for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else notice he just did not name whoever it was?
Well, it was during the Q&A session, so I assume it was a student, and he didn't actually get the name.
Like he was debating a student?
No, he was debating someone else, and then a student came up during the Q&A session.
Oh no, I get that part. I'm not talking about the student. I'm talking about the person he was debating. He said I was debating someone else. And
yeah,
then,
that's a good point. So
like that's
so we could find this
almost
debate and listen to it.
I mean, I'm a little curious about that, but also like usually pretty much whenever people mention debates, like I was in this debate with so and so, they almost always name who the person is. So I don't know. Just so and so.
It's a little odd.
Some person.
I'm not going to hold it against him because like maybe it doesn't matter, maybe he forgot, and the story is still true. I don't know. So far, the story isn't obviously false, like a lot of Kent Hovind's, where he's like, this one time I was on a plane with an evolutionist, and he asked me. It's like, no, he didn't. None of this happened.
They're still monkeys.
Right.
Yeah, no. Right, yeah.
Okay.
I can't get things published in peer-reviewed journals is these people are not my peers.
That's true, because you don't have the training, expertise, or honesty to be a peer of anyone at any relevant peer-reviewed journal. That's accurate. So you know what? We'll take a drink.
That probably did happen.
Yep. He definitely is not a peer of anyone on the editorial board or the peer review list, I guess. I don't know. The people that they tend to send things to peer review. He's definitely not a peer of any of those people.
The people who are judging my article are all people like you, who are bigoted against any dissenting view.
That's going to be yet another gigantic citation needed there. So basically, first I'm going to take a drink because my God. Okay, so
what was that?
This is essentially just a claim of conspiracy, right? Oh, there's a big conspiracy. They all just hate anyone who disagrees. That's why, Wait, did Stephen Jay Gould get kicked out of Science? Did he fail to publish because of his counter consensus views? I forget.
No,
that wasn't the reason. What about Lynn Margulis, who we've already talked about in this series last episode, who had some very counter consensus views? Was she forbidden from publishing and had all of her papers rejected outright, even the ones that challenged the paradigm that was reigning at the time?
No, I don't think that was the case.
Interesting. Well, let's bring it forward in time, right? So when Mary Schweitzer first started reporting finding molecular fossils from soft tissue, that was very much against the consensus. Was she forbidden from publishing?
Considering that she has published like 10 or so papers on that now, I don't believe so.
Weird. So
weird.
It's almost like there isn't actually a bunch of guys sitting around saying, well, this doesn't agree with me, so I'm going to have to reject it. Because that's not how peer review works. If you were a peer reviewer who just gave notes back like, I disagree, recommend rejection, you wouldn't be continued to be contacted for peer review, right? Like, that's not how it works. Plus, you're just... Bad Jackson here is just setting up a conspiracy theory. The problem with the conspiracy theory is it never solves the problem that it's that's proposed to solve, right? So, how come there's no evidence of aliens visiting Earth that is sufficiently compelling, right? And nothing beyond like some guy saw something in the sky, or someone said they were abducted in their sleep, which sounds like a dream to me. Oh, well, it's because there's a government conspiracy. Well, okay, if you want me to believe in your alien story, now you still have to provide the positive evidence for the aliens, but you also now have a new part of the story, which is a conspiracy theory. You still have to provide positive evidence for that. So proposing that the only reason Charles Jackson isn't taken seriously is a conspiracy theory means, one, he still has to actually provide the evidence that would allow him to be published in a peer-reviewed journal if there were no conspiracy, which he's never done. Not by a long shot, but he would also then have to demonstrate the conspiracy actually exists.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
No, because there is no such conspiracy. And the thing is, it's like, the reason the scientific community rejects creationism isn't because they don't like it. There are a lot of people in the scientific the scientific community who I'm sure would like for there to be some evidence for creationism because, hey, spoiler alert, a bunch of scientists are religious, and I'm sure that they wouldn't mind having really good reasons in, say, biology or geology to believe that, their religion is true, and I'm sure many of them would be willing to modify their theology if it meant that they had actual hard evidence that increased their level of confidence in their particular religion. Right? Basically, what I'm saying is, I'm pretty sure there is a bunch of scientists who would be happy for creationism to be true if it were, but it's not. So, all right, here we go. And we're almost coming up to a break, so we're going to get in a little bit more Jackson, and then we're probably going to take a quick break. We might get 2 more sections of Jackson in. And here we go.
That's why. And he, oh, that's just a cop-out. I said, no, that's why
No, it absolutely is a cop-out.
it's true. That's why we creationists have to have our own journals, because evolutionists will just, they're not our peers. Okay.
Well,
So,
that's not
so
always true.
if any of you happen to have the misfortune of reading creationist literature,
Oof.
you'll find out that the reason they publish their own journals is not that there is some shadowy cabal of scientists preventing them from publishing in regular journals, in any of the like hundreds of regular journals. The reason is their work is crap. It's absolutely garbage and can easily be shot full of holes. If you don't believe me, RJ and I wrote a whole book on it. And we're working on a second. So, yeah, no, it's just terrible.
Yep.
They're just bad at it.
Mm-hmm. It's they don't cite the sources that are relevant. They'll cite old sources that have been retracted or superseded. They'll cite incorrectly, so they'll take some source, right, and they'll say, oh, this agrees with me, even though the actual conclusions are diametrically opposed. They'll just get math badly wrong, and it will just get published anyway. Like, one of my favorite examples is Jeffrey Tompkins' second attempt to show that humans and chimpanzees are only distantly similar in terms of genetics. He just got his math wrong. He failed to weight the percent similarity in his alignable sequence data by sequence length, which, I mean, that's just failing at high school math. It's not even complicated math. It's not even like calculus or anything. Not even pre-calculus. It's algebra, right? So it's like saying, oh, hey, I had a walking speed of like 1 kilometer an hour, and I traveled like 6 kilometers, but then at the end, I sprinted, and I got a much higher speed, so I'll just average my sprint speed plus 1 kilometer an hour, and that's just my average speed for the day. No, it's not.
Oh,
that's not how
that works.
That's not how any of it works. So and Jeffrey Tompkins did that, and it got published, and the correction has been sitting, metaphorically at least, on Andrew Snelling's desk for I think close to a decade now. Doesn't touch it. So there's also that when their work is shown to be wrong, they just don't bother actually issuing retractions. I mean, to say that they're not the peers of the people who are actually doing real science is very true. That's the most true thing that Dr. Charles Jackson has said so far. Because real scientists tend to do this thing called science. They tend to be honest about it, and they tend to check each other. Creationists just rubber stamp things that aren't obviously absurd to themselves and that confirm their pre-established biases.
I was working on a script, which I will not tell you which script, or I'm making the story up. No. But one of the things that I was reading for the script, which is not on my channel, haha, regarded sponges and whether or not these chemical markers, these cholesterols essentially, in rocks from Oman, were more probably made by sponges. And this first paper came out where these researchers said, well, based on this data, we think it's in favor of the sponge hypothesis. Well, another team of researchers came along and said, well, we think this data could be plausibly interpreted in favor of the algae hypothesis. And then the original authors came back, and then other authors came, and they just had this whole back and forth, which I think it's in favor of the sponge cholesterol hypothesis right now. Both sides, were trying as hard as they could to disprove the other side, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely refute the others. And you don't really get that in creationism. You just get, as Dapper said, rubber stamped.
Apparently your sponge's ore didn't come through, so it was sponge's ore. What was the other option?
Algae,
okay. It's Jackson's characterization of peer review is about as far off as it possibly could. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying that there's no one who's biased. and that there aren't people who try to protect
Sure,
their
people have their pet theories.
yeah, people try to protect their pet theories, especially if they're famous and relatively powerful scientists. And so there is a sense in which actually it's measurable when a particularly famous scientist who's been prolific in his field dies. Papers in that field, especially those challenging the consensus, actually have an uptick after that person dies, because now it's
Right.
more like politically acceptable
Science.
to challenge it.
Science moves by funerals, isn't that the line?
Yeah, it's like science progresses like one funeral at a time, I think. It's something like that.
Yeah, something
So
like that.
we're going to go ahead and take a break real quick, but before we do, I want to say thank you very much to Star Runner.
Dapper?
All right, well, I guess I'm technically back now. So that's fun. Yeah, this is actually not the first time in the last, say, hour and a half that my internet has gone out. So, yeah. That's fun. I can't tell if you guys can hear me or not, because, well, now Discord seems to be down. So, that's fun. I am technically back, I think. Can't really tell. It says I'm back. You guys, if I'm back, let me know. I'm going to refresh my, Oh, David DB Numbers, you hear me. Thank you. Well, I guess that was my break. I can't tell if Jackson can hear me, but I will try to share my screen again with him. It says that I am, but that doesn't seem to be accurate. Jackson, can you hear me?
Dapper?
Yes, that's me.
Dapper?
Hello.
Okay, you can hear me. Hello.
Yes, I can now.
Do.
All right, well, I guess we're back. What I wanted to say was thank you very much to Star Runner and yeah, that was the break, I guess. Jackson, was that a sufficient break for you?
Yep.
Okay, sorry guys. My internet just went down as I'm trying to take a break, which is weirdly convenient.
Wait, that was
and
yours?
Yeah.
I thought it was mine.
Oh yeah, I lost all internet access, but besides 4G on my cell phone.
Because I was looking at mine, and I was like, it doesn't say my internet's out, but
it was me.
I can't see anything. So,
like I said, it's the second time in an hour and a half that Xfinity has just dropped our internet completely.
Nice.
So right now, there is an attempt to go get a whole lot of money back from Xfinity. If it's successful at this point, it might just get the next bill completely off. I doubt it'll be that successful, but whatever. So anyway, yeah, thank you very much to Star Runner for pledging at the $20 level. Let me know if you have any trouble getting a hold of the Discord, and I'll also be sending you a message to that effect after the show. We are currently $76 from... wait, that can't be right, because it was a $20 pledge. You know what? I don't understand the math, but right now it says we're $76 away. So,
Nice.
yeah, we're really getting there. 5G is trying to kill the last dino, says TC the Unbeliever. All right, well, I did actually manage to get my drink, because since I'm offline, I might as well pour more gin into a glass, right, everybody? All right, here we go. We're going to get more Jackson in. And if you're watching this in the far future, do know that there was quite a bit of buffering, which I believe YouTube will just cut out. I don't really know, though. Smitty says to upgrade to Wi-Finity. If only it were available in this area. Okay.
So do germs evolve? No. Bacteria
Wrong.
can't evolve resistance to antibiotics.
Just take a drink. We've already gone over it.
Somebody's already immune and survives and multiplies, and the trait spreads that way. Or somebody is already immune and they transfer their chromosome to other bacteria.
Chromosome? Whew.
genome because bacteria only have a circular chromosome.
Yeah. So take a big old drink for that. Because my
That's not
goodness,
how
is that
that
ever
works.
wrong? Wow. Eric Chamian sent a $10 super chat and then afterwards sent in parentheses intentionally no message. Which so that reminds me of a quick anecdote. I was in the Navy, and in Navy manuals, anytime that there's a book or other manual or whatever where they don't have any information for the page, they put a page number, they keep the page heading, but then on the page they put this page intentionally left blank, which is itself a contradiction because by writing that, the page isn't blank. And I always thought that was one of the stupidest things, and that they really need a different way to express that. So, yeah. Ben Tolman says, this comment intentionally left blank. All right, awesome. We're gonna, like Jackson said, bacteria have a single circular genome, and you can call it a chromosome if you want. I mean, it's not the least accurate thing I've ever heard. But yeah, no one's transferring chromosomes between bacteria because that's not really a thing that can happen. So here we go.
Just can't do that.
Yeah, it's just literally impossible. In fact, it also wouldn't even work in organisms that do have chromosomes in the traditional sense. Like, if someone just injected like a human zygote with an extra chromosome, that's not going to just work, and certainly can't spread through the population because it will be an unpaired chromosome, which will then cause meiosis, which is how you get gametes to generally fail. So that person, the resulting person, would be sterile in almost every circumstance even if you did that. So yeah, this is just not how horizontal gene transfer works. I'm going to take a drink for Bad Jackson saying something so stupid. All right, here we go.
And spread the immunity. This is scientifically documented, both of these. And I showed you the documentation. It's something all immunologists know, all the Center for Disease Controls knows this. Everybody in science, in disease research in the medical community knows.
Can we pause for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Guy who says all bacterial infections should be treated with broad-spectrum antibiotics says this is a fact all immunologists should know. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, it's... Oh, man. Dr. Jackson... I honestly, I don't even have words beyond that, because this is like... Yeah. I mean, the part of what you're saying that's true, everyone already does know. And also, we know why you're an idiot on this subject.
That what I've been saying is true, and that these two things are true. But this is just a horizontal transfer of existing genes. No new information, no new DNA, no new trait. It's still only natural selection acting upon the sharing of a trait. Okay, let's go back to the high school biology textbook here. And remember what they said, that evolution is important to understand because of drug resistance in bacteria and these other natural selection things.
That's true, but it was just a quote, so we're not going to drink for it.
Stephen Jay Gould, in 2000, in Natural History magazine, in an article called Abscheulich, which means atrocious in German, he said this about reading what we just...
I'm sorry.
No.
Let him read the thing, and then I'll say the thing.
Okay.
Saw in textbooks. Once, of course, he believes in evolution, okay, but he is talking about why wrong things get in textbooks, and I agree with him on this. Once ensconced in textbooks, misinformation becomes cocooned and effectively permanent because textbooks copy from previous texts. Mindless.
Okay. All right, so this quote, the atrocious, because I'm not even going to try the German. So this was an article that he wrote, if I remembering correctly, about the Haeckel embryos. So you guys have probably heard about, Haeckel's infamous embryos where they're all, forged and whatnot. No, that just simply isn't true. Some of them are artistically styled a little bit. I guess that's the nice way. They're not forged. That's not even the right word. Not the right word for it. They were some of them were slightly changed because Haeckel was making this stylized diagram in a popular book, not in a scientific work,
Mm-hmm.
to show people this how embryos provide evidence for homology, and there's also this whole idea that like, oh, Darwin relied on on Haeckel's embryos for evolution. No, he didn't. Origin of Species came out before the Haeckel embryo drawings came out, so no, the timeline's just totally off. But also, most of the embryos that Haeckel drew were actually perfectly fine, and in fact, he was praised for some of them because they were that good. And there's just so much to say about it because there's a lot sort of to unpack with that one issue. And this is a quote mine of that. Gould is referring to the fact that the embryos show up in textbooks. The actual embryo stage that these that the stage of development these embryos are in is called the pharyngula stage. And so basically what happens is there's this model of development for animals where they basically it's like an hourglass essentially. You have a lot of variation in the first part, then they pass through this. Sorry, no, not the pharyngula, the phylotypic stage. So those may be synonymous. I'm not entirely sure. This is called
I'm
the
not
phylotypic
very good
stage.
at embryology, so I will defer to you on this one.
Yeah, it's the phylotypic stage. And so they pass through this stage where they look very similar, which is kind of weird because, like I said, there's a lot of variation at the very start of the process, and then there's a lot of variation at sort of the end of the process. They pass through a stage where they all look very similar, at least for for vertebrates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, why do they pass through this little point where they all look very similar? Well, that's a question in embryology, but Haeckel was drawing that. He was drawing the phylotypic stage for these vertebrate embryos, and some of them are stylized, and some of them look just like he drew. I mean, we don't have to rely on the images nowadays. We can
have
just look at
photos.
micro photographs.
Right.
Yeah, you just take a picture of the embryos. But Gould was writing this. Gould wrote this article, which was also criticizing the embryos. He kind of went overboard with some stuff, and he wasn't the only one. There was another article that came out in, I think it was Science, that sort of went overboard on critiquing the embryos. I think it was called like Fraud Rediscovered or something like that.
Yeah, which was then followed up by another article called "Fraud Not Proven," which then overturned that little conclusion there.
Right, because they went overboard. One of the things that they did was Haeckel pointed out that in his drawings he excluded things like the yolk sac, and he oriented all of the embryos in the same direction and made them all the same size for ease of comparison.
Yep. Which
the article was like, let's make them the actual sizes. Let's keep the yolk sac for some of them. They're not all oriented in the same way. Just did everything opposite of the way he said he had them, essentially.
Right.
It's like, no.
Mm-mm. Yeah, if you want to say that it was a fraud, you have to say, if he did the non-fraudulent thing he describes, what would it look like? And that's not what they did.
Yeah, it's really weird to call it a fraud because he wasn't like defrauding anyone or anything like that, and he was just showing that these embryos do in fact look similar.
Yep.
And maybe some are a little bit stylized, okay, but if you can still look at the micro photographs and they really do look very similar to each other. The phylotypic stage that he drew is still a thing. It's researchers still talk about it.
Take a drink for Mothra.
I don't know. There's just a lot to say about the whole event. There are lots of misconceptions, and it doesn't help that actual scientists also contributed to the misunderstandings.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But look, it happens, right? This is actually an example of science being very open to publishing things that kind of go against the consensus, right? Because Haeckel he's not really a scientist. He was more of a science communicator, but he's still very famous in the history of science, and his drawings are very famous. So the idea that someone's going to come along and say, haha, these these drawings are a fraud, that's going to make you famous because you're going to be overturning a long cherished belief in science. And yet it got published because, again, science is looking to be shown to be wrong about conclusions because that's how you progress in science, right? If you don't find out that you were wrong, you can't get more right. Because science isn't... Oh, my goodness. Take a drink from Mothra. Someone's trying to kill me now. Actually, I think it was Erica. I think Erica's trying to kill me. My goodness.
Uh-oh.
She's trying to get out of our next Eric with Erica. That's what it is. He's like, haha, if Dapper dies of alcohol poisoning, I don't have to listen. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, she's technically
again,
right, I guess,
yeah, if I die of alcohol poisoning, she doesn't have to listen to Eric Hovind ever again.
There's a bit of incentive there, it sounds like.
My goodness, it's happening again. I'm literally gonna die now. Well, guys, it's been a fun time on the channel. Before I die of alcohol poisoning, I'll give Beethoven my password so he can make public my last few videos. Yeah, now I'm back, actually. I think OBS just now reconnected. So, guys, all right, we're going to give it one more go. The next time this disconnects, we're just going to shut it down. Because I don't know. I honestly, I want Xfinity to just give us like a month of free internet at this point. This is absolutely ridiculous. There's a reason that we have a pretty nice tier of internet service that we've subscribed to. And one of the reasons is so I can do things like this without interruption. And then in addition to not updating the contract on their end, so that they're still trying to charge for services that are not currently being requested or provided for that matter. They've been giving the runaround on customer service for 8 hours or something now. And also our internet is just cutting out. So this is pretty unacceptable. Yeah. So we're gonna keep
sound pretty unacceptable.
Yeah, we're gonna keep going for a little bit. We're gonna see what happens. Yeah. It wasn't just OBS. My actual internet at my computer visibly disconnected. Like I couldn't hear Jackson. Everything buffered on my end. My chat disconnected. Yeah.
These are interesting times. We don't trust the government. We don't trust the legal system. We don't trust the media. We don't trust each other. We've undermined all authority, and with it, the basis for replacing it.
Interesting is a mild way of putting it.
It's like a 6-year-old's dream come true.
Yeah, we really, who can we trust?
Drink from Mothra.
We need real science. We need hard facts, observations, data, experiment. This
Almost like
lady
you already
is
have that.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Because remember, Charles Jackson here is accepting essentially all of the evolutionary story, and he's just balking at the idea that mutation could result in genetic diversity, despite the fact that the mutation and increasing genetic diversity are basically synonymous. Not quite, because there are other ways to increase genetic diversity beyond that, but to a large extent, those are basically the same thing. So, yeah. I really don't know how he's trying to maintain that this isn't well known. I don't know. We're gonna hit play. Sorry. I'm a little bit out of sorts as a result of the numerous interruptions to internet service from a company that's currently been giving the runaround for more than 8 straight hours about trying to get a bill fixed. Quite frankly, if they don't just reduce it to 0, I don't know. It's extremely unacceptable. If you guys want to start a letter writing campaign, feel free.
Associate Dean for the medical education at Stanford University. And in the Stanford Medical Magazine in 2006, in an article called Darwin in Medical School, look what she said. It's impossible to be a good physician without understanding the evolutionary process.
I mean, that's true. There you go.
I mean,
actually, that's not entirely
It's not really true. Because, I mean, look, we have like Ben Carson, who is 1, the sleepiest man I've ever seen. 2, a young Earth creationist. What he is. Dude's always asleep.
Right, no, I just forgot that he was habitually tired.
He really is.
But no, I mean, you're right. You can be a perfectly fine neurologist or whatever, and
neurosurgeon in his case. This guy, this was the first person to ever successfully separate conjoined twins who shared brain material and have them both survive.
Yeah.
Like, when it comes to the history of medicine, his name should be, in the history books because he did historically significant stuff, right? He was the first neurosurgeon to do this. It's still a big deal. He's a pioneer in neurosurgery. Neurosurgery. He also is a young Earth creationist who thinks that the pyramids, which by the way have virtually no internal space, they're almost solid rock. He said that they were granaries for the famine of Joseph described in the Bible, which is beyond stupid. So I mean, like, look, you can be really good at one thing, including being a physician, and then awful at almost everything else, which describes Ben Carson, because he's really good neurosurgeon, or at least he was. I think he's retired from that now. But he's also really bad at staying awake, really bad at making sense of history, really bad at, evolutionary biology, really bad at geology, really bad at... I'll leave it there because that's going to start getting overly political. He's really bad at a lot of things, but not neurosurgery. So he's a great physician. So I actually do tend to disagree with Julie Parsonet, MD, Associate Dean for Medical Education at Stanford U.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you're right. She's not entirely correct, but it is very helpful to understand the process because lots of evolutionary principles are used in medicine.
So actually, there have been instances where evolution has been used to develop directly treatments. So for instance, there was a case, and I wish I knew more of the details, but there was I believe it was a little girl who was suffering from a bacterial infection that was likely to be fatal. Oh, you have it?
It was one of the brain-eating amoebas.
Yes.
And Callie Hardig was her name. I don't know why I remember that. But yeah, she I can't remember which specifically it was. Was it a Canthamoeba? Regardless,
it was a brain-eating amoeba. Her brain was literally being devoured from the inside by microbes.
Yeah, and the researchers basically figured out, hey, this thing is related to Leishmania, and so we're going to apply this Leishmania vaccine to her and see if it helps. And it did, because they're related.
Yep. So, I mean, evolution just does provide useful medical advances. It's impossible to legitimately claim that it doesn't. But that being said, like I said, it is possible to be a really good neurosurgeon, apparently, without believing in evolution. It doesn't stop you, but it doesn't help to not believe in evolution.
I take that as a little slam on Jesus, because he's the good physician. I don't like that.
Oh my goodness, that was a terrible joke. I forgot. We drink for bad jokes. Take a drink.
I mean, I think Jesus' method of healing people was slightly different, but what have you.
Yeah, that too. Also, there's nothing incompatible between Christianity, broadly speaking, and accepting evolution. In fact, I have on my channel regularly people in that category. And for all you know, I'm in that category because I don't reveal my religious positions because it doesn't.
It's true. Nobody knows what his religion is. Or is not.
Yeah. I could secretly be an atheist Christian. You wouldn't know.
Atheist Christian? That would,
yeah.
That's a new one on me.
I think that's what Jordan Peterson claims to be.
Look, Dapper. If you fall into any same category as Jordan Peterson.
I mean, alive, North American, from Earth.
But you're Jurassic.
Still from North America.
Get out of here.
So, I mean, you fall into even more categories. You're in the same species. So.
You don't have to remind me.
Okay.
I'm already embarrassed enough.
Making a joke, but it's funny that she put it that way. But in the very same article, look what this other guy,
funnier whenever you explain a joke.
Yes.
From England said in the very same article, perhaps part of the problem in convincing medical practitioners to embrace evolution is the nature of the science. Evolutionary hypotheses are notoriously hard to investigate. Add to this the fact that the field of evolution has failed so far to provide clinically useful findings, and
even in 2006, I'm going to press X to doubt on that, but it's definitely not true anymore.
Yeah, okay, so I read a book recently titled "The Beak of the Finch" by Jonathan Weiner. It came out in 2000, or sorry, I think it was 1994 was when it came out. And one of the things he mentions in the book was that I mentioned that there was a group of researchers who were testing the evolution of something, and they had to like enlist an ophthalmologist, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so they enlist this guy who is, by training, an ophthalmologist, not an evolutionary biologist. And they're like, "Hey, we need your help figuring out, some stuff about the eye regarding evolution." And he was shocked. He was like, "Whoa, evolution occurs that fast? Can occur that fast?" And this guy may be in that same camp, because there are medical fields which the people in there may be aware of like how evolution works, but maybe their understanding of it is like millions of years ago, the distant past. Evolution in the way back. They're not thinking about evolution in terms of the bacteria, evolving. Maybe they don't think about it quite in those terms when they think about this process, right? So it's still evolution. They're just not thinking about it as evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Which happens, and I mean that's fine. But yeah, you're right. It's weird to hear him say that it has provided no clinically useful findings. Like,
Well, it absolutely has.
Yeah, and has for decades at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the inability of penicillin to continue working as a cure has happened in like the 80s or something, 60s maybe. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
So anyway.
By the way, Spinny says Jordan Peterson believes God exists as a literary device that motivates people. I mean, technically he's right about that. Whether or not God exists in reality as an actual like ontological being, God at least exists as a literary device that has demonstrably motivated people. So he's not wrong there.
Yeah, but that's way more concise than he would ever say it.
Well, yeah. And he's going to talk about lobsters during that conversation for some reason.
You'll see why
carry a tank with him. Just carry a tank of lobsters with him at like all times, and like get them out. And be like, let me explain to you what I am saying using lobsters. And like turns around and pulls them out of a tank. Anyway,
medical schools lack interest. There is much about explanation and understanding, but little about treating and curing.
I mean that could be broadly true.
Maybe, although it's hard to treat things that you don't understand.
That is true. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess in some ways that could be true. I guess depending on which field you're in. If you're like a cancer specialist or something, then maybe you don't really need to know about evolution per se. Even though you can apply the principles of evolution to understanding like cell lines within a cancer. Because they mutate and they form, and if you like sequence them, you can see like nested hierarchies.
Yeah,
mutations. So you can still apply evolution.
Cancer literally evolves within the body.
Yes, but I mean, broadly speaking, I guess.
Yeah.
It says evolutionary medicine proponent, but then it seems like he's not really quite sure how evolution works. I don't know.
I mean, maybe he isn't.
Whatever.
Like, who is this? Darwin?
I've never heard of this.
PhD.
I've never heard of this dude before. I have no idea.
Well, one thing I'll point out is he's not a doctor. So,
yeah.
Weirdly enough, when we're talking about evolution per se, we often get like medical doctors or dentists or geologists or things to talk about evolution per se. But then we get to say, okay, well, how has evolution helped medicine? We don't ask a doctor. We ask a guy who, I'm not sure why he would be expected to know a whole lot about current medical science. So it's weird that we get that. So, yeah, that's an odd thing.
Stephen Lewis, University of Chester. Is this him? Dr. Steve Lewis? Is this him?
Double check.
Senior lecturer?
We're going to continue on for a little bit. Double check, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can't, if you don't believe in evolution, you can't treat diseases. But this guy said, no, actually, it hasn't helped at all. Philip Skell
That's
is a,
not quite what he
retired
said,
professor.
but
Yeah, no, not really. But
that's not what he said.
I'm glad that you found the most extreme versions of the claims there, Charles Jackson. It definitely doesn't smack of cherry picking, not at all.
Professor from Penn State. He is a non-Darwinian member of the National Academy of Sciences in the
What does it mean to be a non-Darwinian member? Does it mean he rejects evolution? Does it mean he rejects evolution by natural selection? Does it mean he rejects sexual selection? Is he a creationist? Who knows? Who knows?
He's a non-Darwinian. Is he like a pure
Is he a Lamarckian?
pure neutralist?
Yeah, see,
He's
that's
like a pure neutralist. There you go.
who knows?
Scientist
Research is so the research of Stephen Lewis is concerned with exploring biological and philosophical aspects of the concepts of illness, disease, and health, and considering what, by extension, these notions say about life and death. So it sounds like he's a philosopher.
Weird. Also, I want to point out Sal is in the chat, and he just said that while he'll be in and out, he hopes we're all doing well. I'd be doing better if Xfinity weren't just completely screwing over this stream. If I'm being honest, I'm a little annoyed about that. But also, he says that he just got his second dose of a vaccine for shingles. So that is awesome.
Oh,
Look, shingles it's a rough disease. You don't want to have shingles, really.
yeah,
But
my
also,
dad had it. Not pleasant.
this channel is extremely pro-vaccine. And so, congratulations on that. I'm glad that you're getting that vaccine because, my goodness, do you not want shingles? It is a brutal time. For those of you who don't know, shingles is basically what happens when you have an active symptomatic chickenpox infection as an adult. And as a kid, it's a fairly mild disease that just causes some rashes and itchiness. It is excruciating and basically debilitating as an adult. It's not a fun time. Do not want shingles. And if you've had chickenpox as a kid, you can develop shingles as an adult. Just out of the blue. So, thanks for all those chickenpox parties, all those, like, you know, I guess parents who are now in their, like, early 60s, 70s.
So I looked up Philip Skell. He's an intelligent design advocate, apparently. He is a signatory of the Descent from Darwinism list. But he's a chemist, not a biologist, so...
Weird!
don't really care what he has to say? Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Goodness. It's like James Tour thinking that he has a point to make as a synthetic chemist. It's like, okay, great, but the thing you're criticizing isn't the synthetic chemistry, so why does no one in the field agree with you? Oh, right. Because you ignore huge swaths of the data field because you're not familiar with the actual processes involved. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's funny that the quote is, I recently asked these guys if they would have done their work, and gals probably, if they would have done their work differently if they had thought Darwin's theory was wrong. Well, it doesn't really matter if they thought it was right or wrong. The data's still going to be the data. So, okay. Anyway.
Jack of Hearts says, I never got chickenpox. I don't know anyone in the UK who got it. Well, I mean, that's good. It's, at least from my memory, it was basically ubiquitous where I grew up.
Magazine, which is for science teachers, in 2005, in an article, Why Do We Invoke Darwin? He said this: my own research with antibiotics received no guidance from insights provided by Darwinian evolution.
So this dude worked with penicillin, and he says, my own research received no guidance. Look, that part's in italics. No guidance from insights provided by Darwinian evolution. So either he's an idiot or he's just being dishonest.
Yeah.
One of those.
Yeah, because the thing is,
I don't think he's an idiot because it seems to be a published dude. So
the thing is that the antibiotic resistance to penicillin was entirely natural selection, which is the basic thing that Darwin had as an insight, right? Like, that was the big contribution of Darwin, and to some extent also sexual selection. But the big one was natural selection. That was the revolutionary thing, and it took a while for sexual selection to even catch on. Yeah, that's dumb.
Recently asked more than 70 eminent researchers in antibiotic and immunology work, if they would have done their work differently if they'd have thought Darwin's theory was wrong. The responses were all the same. No.
I mean, I'm glad that you claim this. I don't know who these people are. I don't know why. I don't know.
I asked some people one time, trust me, bro.
Yeah, dude, you gotta trust me. I'm totally honest about this. I totally know that natural selection has nothing to do with Darwin, so you can totally trust me.
Like I said, I mean, even if, this is true, he said, would they have done their work differently if they thought this thing was wrong? Like, okay? And?
Yeah, it's a weird
This
way
is
to
the
phrase
point.
it. Yeah, I don't know.
People who are in the research field for disease research, for immunology, bacteriology, all of them, they don't depend on Darwin's theory to do their actual research.
You picked a couple of popular journal articles by people who are either not biologists like at all. None of them were evolutionary biologists. Several of them just weren't biologists at all. So, like, could you have tried, like, at all these? Could you put forth the smidgenest bit of effort?
No.
Just the smidgenest.
He doesn't have to because his audience is going to buy this. Because we're not his audience. We're interlopers.
It's true.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, I know.
Darwin's theory gets out of professors' mouths in the classrooms associated with this. It gets printed in the textbooks associated with this. But the real scientists, whether they believe in evolution or not, the real scientists are not employing Darwinian theory to have a great march on of the science of curing diseases. It's
interesting that you cited no scientific articles about curing any diseases.
Yeah, instead there were some iffy sources that are only tangentially related to evolutionary biology.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's almost like he avoids.
But also, it's also, he's arguing for a non sequitur, right? Evolution doesn't provide useful results in field X, therefore evolution is wrong, is not a valid argument.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
So even if he were right, and evolution didn't help medicine at all, which is obviously not true, it still doesn't make it wrong. And it still doesn't mean that that bacteria don't evolve resistance to antibiotics. They obviously do.
Yeah, it's like Kent Hovind likes to say, what is it? Agriculture relies on evolution not happening. Isn't that what he says? Which is demonstrably wrong. Yeah, because we artificially selected things that are not edible into things which are not super edible.
Right.
Like, go try eating a wild banana. It sucks.
Yes.
Or
basically
or wild
all
orange
seeds.
or something. Yeah, or wild orange or wild watermelon or what have you.
I don't even think wild oranges exist. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of weird hybrid.
Right, yeah, and that's the point, right? These things don't exist in the wild. Corn is teosinte, which is basically a grass. These things are not edible on any large scale, and so we had to employ selection on variations which arose by mutations and recombination to get these things to where they are now. And the cool thing is, we actually know so much about like the evolution from C3 to C4 metabolism in plants, for instance. Researchers are actually evolving C3 plants into C4 plants to make them able to be grown in areas that have very arid climates.
So
that,
interesting.
So that people can have food.
So I could grow some
works.
stuff, some of these vegetables that wouldn't normally be growable here in Arizona.
Right, yeah, or like in very arid places in like China or Mongolia or what have you. And so, yeah,
I was
cool
told
how that works.
I was told earlier today that Mongolia is part of China, which is weird because it's not what it says on the maps. But I don't know.
Were you talking to like an imperialist Chinese or something like that?
No, this was like an American white guy who
Taiwan, never heard of it. Or Hong Kong.
What's that?
What's that?
All right, here we go.
Yikes.
Absolutely useless in curing diseases. It's useless in real hands-on results in science. All it is an ethereal pipe dream that, frankly, the devil uses to make people feel like they don't owe God anything.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink. Hold on.
Stairs and Francis Collins, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, look. Well, it is true that the number of scientists who are theists, sorry, the proportion of scientists who are theists is lower than the general public. It's not like theistic scientists are thin on the ground, including in evolutionary biology, including specifically Christians. If Satan is trying to use evolution to get rid of Christianity, he's doing a really crappy job of it. However, if Satan's trying to use young earth creationism as an attempt to get rid of people's Christianity, he's actually doing a pretty decent job, which you could tell by doing things like taking a look at the number of people who are now ex-Christians, who I've just interviewed myself on this channel for leaving young earth creationism, which, by the way, does not require you to be an ex-Christian to be on.
Could you imagine if that was actually Satan's goal, like invent young earth creationism as a way to force Christians abandon Christianity?
It honestly makes more sense than what Bad Jackson is proposing.
You're right, it does. Like it's better at getting people out of Christianity than accepting evolution is. Like that would be a really good long play, So
yep.
Anyway.
Look, a large number of the ex-Christians I know had realizing that young earth creationism was nonsense as part of their deconstruction from Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, so many people, it seems like go straight from young earth creationist and jump all the way to atheist. And you don't have to. Again, that's kind of reinforcing the point, right? If the point is to make Christians leave Christianity, have them be young earth creationists first, because they jump. A lot of times they jump the whole spectrum all the way to the other side, because they feel angry they've been lied to and all this sort of stuff, and so just everything.
Right. I want to say, Jens van Broekhoven says this guy is just a bottom ground line idiot. My rabbits have a better understanding on this topic, but at first I read that as my rabbis, and I was like, Jens van Broekhoven didn't strike me as a Jewish name. But then I saw the T, and I was like, oh, okay. I guess that makes sense, too. Sorry, I swear I just read rabbis, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I didn't know that he was Jewish. Weird. Anyway, here we go.
After all, we
Not that it's weird to be Jewish.
used to be bacteria.
No, humans... No.
We were never bacteria.
The common ancestor of bacteria and eukaryota was neither a bacterium nor a eukaryote. It was probably something that basically is Luca. It was probably the actual common ancestor there. But it wasn't a bacterium. Bacteria evolved much of what now characterizes bacteria since the split with eukaryotes. So...
and became worms. And I always
That's somewhat more accurate, because worm is basically just animal that moves, has a front end and a back end, and is longer than it is wide. It's basically what a worm is. It has no real scientific significance to say this is a worm, but yeah, I guess things that look like worms, like Bacaya and stuff like that, do exist in the human lineage if you go back far enough. So fair enough. I guess I'll take a drink for that kind of being true. Plus, I'm thirsty. It's been a long night already with fucking Comcast.
like to say we pulled ourselves up by our little worm bootstraps, and we became
That was a joke that didn't land. Take a drink.
people, and we did it all by ourselves. No thanks to God, whether we
Went
exist
from
or
bacteria to worms to people.
Those are the only steps.
A history of life. Dr.
Yep.
Charles Jackson.
Also, I just want to point out, theistic evolution is a thing. And there are multiple kinds of it, right? There's the theistic evolution in which God actually injects certain mutations or selection pressures or whatever to get the desired results. But there's also the sense in which given that if you believe in an omnipotent God, he can essentially set everything up so that it will play out according to his plan, even if it doesn't require like direct miracles after the initial setup, and it still is directly, he's still directly responsible. So because it's sort of like if you ever played the game Mousetrap, where you build this elaborate mousetrap, once you build it, you know what's going to happen when you release the ball. So when the ball gets down to the bottom of the mousetrap, I mean, it's still because of you set up the mousetrap. So it's whether or not there's actual constant even occasional interference from like deity in terms of theistic evolutionists, you can still say it's the result of a god, be a theistic evolutionist, and not have to reject anything in particular in science. Dark Law Dragon says, Incompetitcast? Yes, this is accurate.
Or not. We did it ourselves, and we are the gods. We made ourselves.
That's not how any of this works. Just take a drink, because look, humans didn't make themselves in the sense of there were a bunch of humans who sat around and decided to make humans into humans from other things. Natural selection, genetic drift, sexual selection, mutation, these are all unguided processes, basically. So it's not like there's any intention to make themselves. And it's also the environment and essentially random mutations and things like this that are creating the material, which is then going to, evolve into various species. And so it makes no more sense to say that humans made themselves than it does to say that the Himalayas made themselves. What does that mean? Well, I mean, they're the result of plate tectonics and uplift and thermodynamics, but they didn't sit down and say, okay, we're the Himalayas here at the bottom of the ocean between the Indian and the Eurasian plate. We'd like to be mountains, so let's head towards the Eurasian plate, and then India will smash into Eurasia and big mountains. Like that's not a thing. Icarus, I like your comment about internet or internet, but using Cyrillic, but like it doesn't come across well if I just say it. So appreciate it, but like I don't know how to make that clear in just audible form.
Stephen Hawking used to be nice about people who believed in God. God was mentioned in a sort of a lyrical way in his book, The Brief History of Time. But lately he's been getting more meaner about it and less tolerant. I think that's
I
peer
feel like
pressure.
lately he hasn't had very many thoughts on.
Well, okay, but
all,
this
actually.
was made before that, so we're going to give Jackson a pass.
I was just making a joke. It was a joke that didn't land, apparently.
Well, I also don't know why this one scientist is a mean poopy head is an argument. Because this is what it comes down to. Stephen Hawking is kind of becoming a mean poopy head, therefore God is real? Like, what? No. No matter how much of a mean poopy head Hawking is, it doesn't make him right or wrong about God. Oh, excuse me. Or anything else.
Sure, from the other scientists, really.
Yeah, I'm sure that Stephen Hawking was receiving all sorts of pressure from the other scientists to be mean to religion, especially the ones who are Christians. Yeah, which again, significant proportion of his peers.
But he said that because we know that the universe made itself and life made itself and we evolved.
I'm actually not very confident that he said that life made itself and that we evolved, because Hawking didn't really have anything to do with things like evolutionary biology. So, sorry. I'm going to want a citation on that one. All right, here we go.
Even if there is a God, it doesn't matter. Even if there is a God, it doesn't matter. He's irrelevant. I
mean, that depends on your theology.
We made ourselves.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Bring this around full circle, brothers and sisters. This is the original lie of Satan. Like, I've been studying those as...
Okay, hold on. Icarus said he put "niet," and maybe I missed that because I was... Oh, you did say "niet." Okay, yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. That was nice, Icarus. Yeah, I missed that. Sorry. I gotta work up. I honestly have to brush up on like my Cyrillic overall. I rely way too heavily on remembering Greek and then doing like the little weird like letter shape changes to get to Cyrillic.
Ezekiel things about Lucifer, son of the morning, who walked amidst the stones of fire, and how he was cast down, and because of his merchandising and his trade and all the stuff he could do, a fire began to burn in him, and then God burned it brighter, and it destroyed him and sent him to ashes, his pride.
I have no idea what that has to do with anything. Like, that's completely incomprehensible to me. I have no idea what we're talking about anymore. Someone had pride and it burned them up, I guess. I don't know what that has to do with the evidence or anything.
If we get to the part where he's just going to babble about theology, is that really the end of it?
It might be. It might be the end of this video, although there's still over an hour of it left, so I hope that's not what he's about to do. I'll tell you what, okay. I will go ahead and check on that later, and if it is what he does, we will find a new Jackson video.
You know that's the altar call is always the end.
Yeah, once they get to the altar call, it's like there's other channels for that. It's not my channel. You don't get to preach on my channel. That being said, like I said, no problem with people of all sorts of religion being on the channel. But anyway,
we're here to talk about science, right? We're not here to talk about theology.
Right. There are other channels for that, and I don't begrudge them doing it. But we're going to wrap it up for today. Jackson, what's coming up on your channel that people should know about?
Well, Dappy Daps and I will be on for part 3 of the process of evolution this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time. And we may or may not get through with it this time.
I have confidence. I think we will. Got this.
I think I thought that last time or the time before that or whatever. But anyway,
we're significantly farther along this time.
Yeah, that's true. We get through about 30 slides, and I think we're about 60 in. So yeah, we should be able to.
Yeah, there you go.
Get through it.
We got this.
So yeah, we should be able to do that. I have been so busy with school and work recently. I haven't made like any videos. I've written no scripts.
Except the ones with me.
I mean, yeah. Other than that, which are live streams, like it's and that PowerPoint was made way back.
Still, it's content, and you guys should go watch it, and then tune in on Thursday. So
maybe when the summer starts, I'll have more time to get back to YouTube. But right now, it's just way busy with stuff. So apologies, internet people.
Well, I for one am enjoying the series that I'm doing with Jackson. Otherwise, I would have stopped doing it. So
I enjoy it too. It's fun.
On this channel, I made a mistake last time I was live, which is Saturday, saying that we were going to be starting the Kurt Wise series. I forgot there's an entire other series that I had uploaded, made available to my patrons and channel members, and then just forgot even existed, about Pastor Carl Kirby and how absurdly bad his biology is. Well, that's actually what's going to be happening on Thursday. So that's Thursday at noon Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Jackson, what time are we going on Thursday?
7 Central.
Okay, so that's the same time we started this. So that's 5 Pacific, 6 Eastern. So there will be a little bit of a gap there. And let's see. Saturday, the 26th, I'm going to be doing a Leaving Error with Creationism. It will be later in the day. I think it'll actually be 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, because the person I'm interviewing is Australian, and so I'm not going to ask someone from Australia to come on at like noon my time, because that's stupid early in the morning on a Sunday morning. I'm just not going to do that. So look forward to that. That is with Talon Lee. That's already... Oh, no, I'm going to be scheduling that later on today, or maybe tomorrow. Tuesday, the 29th, will be Kent with Bent. Also, the 28th, there might be a off of normal schedule Guns, Magic, and Steel on Cheshire Vic's channel. Stay tuned for that. Check my Twitter. Follow my Twitter. But with that, I think we're going to get out of here, and I'm going to leave you guys with once again saying, hey, the Patreon drive is still going. Please do consider it if you can afford it. We only need $76 more to hit the goal, and I would really love to hit that goal. If we could do it by the end of the month, that would be amazing, although it's becoming increasingly less likely because we're a good portion of the way through the month. But still, it would be great. If you can't afford it, please don't try. Just like my videos, watch them, share them. That helps immensely. Comment. But anyway, we're going to leave you with the end credits, which I hope will work, because OBS is being weird lately. But yeah, bye everybody. Thanks for watching this video, but before you go, I'd like to take a minute to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Bent Hovend, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Chris Love, Landon Knoll, Sphincter of Doom, and Patrick Dennis. Without the help of the people whose name you see on screen right now, this channel simply wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join the team, there's links in the description to my Patreon, as well as a join button right below this video that will allow you to join on YouTube. Joining gets you access to an exclusive Discord server, early access to my videos, often more than a month in advance, as well as other perks depending on how much you decide to pledge. However, if a monthly or annual pledge isn't for you, there are other ways to support the channel, including a merch store down in the description, and hey, just liking and sharing this video always helps a lot. Thank you very much. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur.